You have questions? What is slashing? We have answers.
Slashing is like that, you know?
And there's a penalty for that?
Yeah. You do that, you go to the box, 2 minutes by yourself, and you feel shame, and then you get free.
This is CBJ in 30.
Anything you folks want to know about the fascinating world of pro hockey, here we go.
Tweet your questions by using the hashtag CBJIN30.
We'd like to remind you folks, keep your questions within the boundaries of good taste.
Here's your host, Bob McGilligan.
And welcome to another edition of CBJ in 30. It's another preseason edition here today. The Blue Jackets coming off their third preseason win of the preseason campaign. Too many preseasons, right? Too many mentions of preseason. But anyway, the Blue Jackets are 3-0 here to begin the preseason, and they are that because they beat the Pittsburgh Penguins at Nationwide Arena last night. 2-0 was the final score in that game. You have any questions about that game? Anybody that impressed you, didn't impress you, you didn't see enough of, you want to see more of, you've seen too much of already, you can let me know, and you can do that by just using the hashtag CBJin30 and tweeting in your question and or your comment here this morning. So the Blue Jackets, they get the job done last night, and I think in many regards when you looked at that game last evening, it was a preseason game on both sides. I don't think either team was, well, they're not as sharp as they're going to be when the regular season starts. There's no question about that. And the reason being, number one, is look at the lineups for both teams last night. There were some prominent players that were missing from that game. Although the Blue Jackets did have some of their more prominent players in the game last night. Brandon Dubinsky played for the first time in the preseason this year. Scott Hartnell made his Blue Jackets debut. Also, Sergei Bobrovsky started last night. Jack Johnson was back in. Artem Anisimov was back in the lineup as well. Cam Atkinson. So there were some guys, without question, in the Blue Jackets lineup that are going to be there and play big roles in the regular season. For the Penguins, there were a couple of those guys, but the two main guys were missing for the Penguins last night. And that's not why they lost. That's not even close to why they lost. They lost because they couldn't score. Simple as that. And Sergei Bobrovsky was a big reason why the Penguins couldn't score last night. We went on and on about Sergei Bobrovsky last night in the postgame show, talking about the fact that he looks like he's playing in January or February already. And what a great sign that is for the Blue Jackets, because without question, this guy is the most important part of your team. I know there are some other things going on right now and some guys you'd like to have in the lineup to provide some scoring punch, but let's be honest about it. Sergei Bobrovsky is the guy. If Sergei doesn't play well, so as he goes, so go the Blue Jackets. In a lot of regards, not in every regard, because you're going to say to me, well, last year he was out for 5 weeks and the Blue Jackets did just fine without him. Curtis McElhinney played well. Mike McKenna played well when he came up. Yeah, I get all that. I get all of that. No question. But this guy is a cornerstone goaltender. This is a guy that you have to have playing at the top of his game night in and night out. And that's all he's done here in the past 2 years. That's been him. That's his MO. He goes out and he does his work and he comes back in. Sometimes it's really good. Sometimes it's good enough, and sometimes it didn't get the job done. But there is never, ever a time that Sergei Bobrovsky goes out and dogs it. He goes out and puts out the same effort each and every time that he's on the ice. And that's what he did last night. He faced 30 shots in the first two periods of that game last night. And Todd Richards, in his post-game comments, did say, at one point, you win a game, so you're not trying to, I think Todd is beyond, maybe not beyond, I shouldn't say beyond, but a couple of years ago, Todd, to me, was the kind of coach that was going to let his young players know that that was good, but it wasn't good enough, no matter what it was. Good, but not good enough. There are higher standards. There are higher expectations. And that message has been driven home over the last 2 years. And now, the Blue Jackets, he doesn't have to tell them that. I don't think he needs to go into his post-game press conference and say, well, we did some good things, but I really didn't like this, and I didn't like that, and I didn't like that. I think before he used to do that because that would be his message in the room after the game, and then he would back it up by saying it in the media. So, if anybody heard it or read it, it would be a consistent message. And I'm not saying he'll never do that, but what I am saying is he doesn't have to go into that room last night and say, guys, we spent way too much time in our own zone. We should not have been back there all that time. We should have helped Bob out more, especially in the final minute of that second period. We should have gotten the puck outside the blue line. We shouldn't have been pinned back in there. He doesn't have to say that. They know that. Even though there's young kids playing, they know that. Jack Johnson and Brandon Dubinsky and those guys, they're telling them that. Guys, look, we got to do better than that. We've got to get the puck out of our zone. We've got to help our goaltenders. So, Todd did admit that they were back in there too long last night. They did put Sergei in some spots where it's uncomfortable for most, but he never makes it look uncomfortable, does he? Never. He's just always, he's the same guy. And I think that's the biggest thing for being a goaltender, and I think it starts at an early age and it goes all the way up to the top of the sport. If you can't handle giving up goals, if it's going to bug you every single time you give up goals, you're not going to be in that position for very long at all, because it's going to happen. Sometimes it won't happen. Last night it didn't happen. But you have to know that more than likely it's going to happen. You have to be able to deal with it and not get frustrated. And that's the thing about Sergei. He could give up 5 in a game and he will have the same demeanor for the most part as he does if he gives up none in a game. Now, if he gives up the 5, he'll shake it off and forget about it, but he's peeved right at the end, as you would expect. But it's all about moving on. So after he was done last night, when he's sitting on the bench in the third period, he's done with that game. He's just there and watching the rest of it, and that was a great start to the preseason for him, but now to move on, because he, like so many of these other guys, are just trying to get ready for the regular season, just trying to get themselves into game shape, just trying to get back into the rhythm of it. For Sergei, he's just trying to make sure that he's got his angles right, that he has his rebound control, all of those things. So it's a simple plan. He made it look really simple last night, though. There were some times, there were some shots that were coming through screens, and he just made the save. Some he didn't even know that he made. I'd said last night, you're having a good night as a goalie when a puck hits you that you never saw being shot. And that's the kind of night he had last night. So good for him. Way to get off on the right skate, if you will, to start the preseason for Sergei Bobrovsky. And again, the guys in front of him, they did enough. They got the job done. It was back and forth, and there were times where, even look right before Michael Chaput scored the goal for the Blue Jackets to put them up 1-0. There was basically nothing going on. You've got two teams, they're trading directions back and forth, and then all of a sudden Cam Atkinson gets a puck and he turns on the Jets and up the ice he goes, and his shot rings off the post. First of all, he got the goaltender Thomas Greiss completely out of position on that. The move that he made right in front of the net had Greiss leaning and going the wrong way, and Greiss is lucky the initial shot didn't go into the net. But Cam kissed the post squarely, but it comes right back out, and Chaput's driving the net to follow it up, and he put it right in to make it 1-0. And again, as it turned out, that's all that the Blue Jackets would need. Atkinson did get the empty netter later on to go ahead and seal the deal and set the final at 2-0 for the Blue Jackets last night. So good game overall. Again, parts of it looked like a preseason game. Parts of it were sloppy. Parts of it were disjointed. Parts of it were forgettable. But the thing that's very memorable is the way the Blue Jackets got the job done last night and now have improved to 3-0 in the preseason. And as Todd Richards has said, the wins and losses isn't the big number for him. It's the way his team's playing, the way they're following the system, the little things that they're doing. That's what means the most to him. So that's what he's watching. And, again, when it came down, here's the other thing. I don't want to discount the win by any means. I really don't, because a win is a win. And you're going to have some games. You play 82 games in the regular season, and some are going to be stinkers. Some are not going to be good. Some, you're going to be tired from team travel. You're going to have a number of different factors that could be factoring in on how well the team plays as a whole. And some games are going to be stinkers. And the key to getting into the playoffs and being a good team in this league is winning the stinkers. So even if a game is not perfect, so what? If you win it, that's what you are out to do. You're out to find a way to win. But again, big bright spots last night. There was chippiness in the game, no surprise. The Penguins did have a goal waved off because Pierre-Luc Leblond interfered with Sergei Bobrovsky, so the Pens thought they had a 1-0 lead. That one got wiped off the board. Pierre-Luc Leblond later in the game got kind of into it with James Wisniewski. He hit Wisniewski, And Wisniewski kind of took his number and took exception to that. And when he had a chance a couple of minutes later with LeBlanc skating with his head down, well, he paid him back for the hit that he got. And then tempers flared a little bit. That's 2 preseason games in a row. In fact, there was a fight. Brian Dumoulin, Penguins defenseman, fought Kirby Reichel after that incident happened. So, it's 2 games in a row where there's been a little bit of edginess, a little bit of chippiness. Didn't surprise me at all against the Penguins last night because there still is a carryover. There still is a carryover from the spring. There's still, even though there was no Crosby, there was no Malkin, there was no Kunitz, there was no some of those, I was going to say Dupuis. He didn't play in the playoffs last year. But anyway, even though those guys weren't a part of it, it is still the Pittsburgh Penguins. It is still the team that knocked you out of the playoffs last year. And after what happened to them in the offseason with all of the personnel changes and the changing GMs and changing the coach, you know that they're, to an extent they're reeling right now. And you've got a chance to come right back and hit them, even though it's a game that, for all intents and purposes, doesn't count for anything. You're still setting a tone in the preseason. And you're basically telling the Penguins that, hey, look, anytime there's any of this stuff that goes on, we're big rivals now, okay? So if you want to get mad and you want to take a shot at one of our guys, we're coming back at you. It could be preseason, regular season, postseason. It could be off-season, whatever. That's the way it's going to be. So that was kind of nice. Kind of nice to see that last night as well. So that's pretty much my little spiel on last night. Let's go to Twitter and see what you have for me today, see how busy you're going to keep me. Beth is up with the very first question of today's CBJ in 30. And Beth wants to know simply, who have you been impressed with the most so far during this preseason? Well, somebody asked this last night during the game. And, last year we were watching very intently with a little bit extra on guys like Boone Jenner and Ryan Murray, whether or not they would make the team, which, of course, both did, and both were integral parts of the Blue Jackets making it to the playoffs last year. This year, the focus obviously is on the 3 first-round picks from last year, Alexander Wennberg, Kirby Reichel, and Marco Dano. Reichel played last night. Looked like he might have hurt his hand a little bit in that fight with Dumoulin, but again, I thought he got a goal in the first game that he played against St. Louis, and it was by just being Johnny on the spot and picking off a pass and then walking in and scoring. I thought last night he was where he should have been. He was going hard to the net. He was doing those same things, just trying to prove that he belongs and he can be here and that he can play with a little bit of an edge. So I'm obviously fine with his performance in the first 2 games of this preseason. Wennberg had a goal against St. Louis the other night. Just watching the little things that he does and how he positions himself around the ice has been, it's been impressive because that's the kind of player he is. They say you're not going to see a lot of pizzazz. You're not going to see a lot of flash, but you are going to see a good, solid, smart hockey player that is where he's supposed to be and doing the things he's supposed to do at the right time. So that's what we saw out of him in the game against St. Louis on Sunday. Really, there are 2 guys that are being talked about today because they played in last night's game. And I think the first guy I'm going to talk about is Michael Chaput. And he scored the goal last night. Yes, I get that. But, Michael, when he was up here last year, what did he play? 17 games for the Blue Jackets last year. And he was around for more than that. He was, healthy scratch in a number of games. But he played 4th line, and he played the energy role, and he's got good speed, and he's a great individual. And I can say that, I can go down a roster, and I can tell you, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy, good guy. So that is almost a no-brainer when you're talking about hockey players. But he is. He's such a good guy. He's so appreciative of where he's at. Yesterday morning, he was telling me, I'm just so happy to be back up here. And then in the preseason games, he gets minutes that are more conducive to the way he plays in the American Hockey League. He comes up here and he plays 4th line for the Blue Jackets, and he goes down there and you play 1st or 2nd line in Springfield. That's the way it goes. Derek McKenzie was the same way. Derek McKenzie was a captain in the American Hockey League. He was a first-line centerman, and he comes up here and really excelled in a 4th-line centerman role for the Blue Jackets, playing that energy game. And, of course, it worked out really well for him getting a chance to go to the Florida Panthers during the summer and get a free agent deal. But, Michael got a chance to play in a role that he's very familiar with last night, and I thought he played really well. He and Cam Atkinson got along great. last night on the ice. They worked together very well. Obviously, on the goal, they worked together. They were there again for the empty net goal at the end of the game last night. So I really like Chaput. And again, the advantage that he has in my eyes as I'm watching him, and I'm assuming, I'm not going to speak for the coaches, but let's be honest about it. When you've seen a guy play before and you've seen him in a certain role, and now you have similar roles that you're trying to fill on the team this year, when that same guy comes into camp, I think you watch to see, is he going to do what he did last year? Is he going to be impressive? Is he going to be improved in any of those things that he did last year going into this year? So for all of those reasons, I was impressed by him last night. He played in Carolina the other day, so I didn't see him play on Sunday afternoon, but I'm just impressed with his demeanor and his effort and all of those things. He's got the right mindset, and last night he showed up. He kind of jumped out in that game last night. Cody Golubev is another guy that a lot of people are talking about, and Aaron Portzline had a nice write-up about him in the Dispatch today. For Cody Golubev, he played 24 minutes in last night's game. He played really well. He played with Fedor Tutin. Again, he looked like he belonged. And that's a key, because when you're playing these preseason games, when you're a young player, and I know Cody's been around for a couple of years, and he's not an 18-year-old rookie coming out of junior. He's been around. He's experienced development camps. He's experienced the American Hockey League. I get all of that. But when you get into a game like last night and you're asked to play 24 minutes alongside of Fedor Tutin, and you're getting some top minutes, you're a first or second pairing guy in that game. Well, you want to see what they do, and you want to see if they get exposed. Cody Golubev was not exposed last night in any way, shape, or form. If anything, his exposure came because he did just about everything right, I thought. I mean, he was solid on the blue line. He's I think he falls into that category. Yeah, he took some shots on net, and he wasn't afraid to crank it up and all of that. But let's be honest. With most defensemen, if you don't notice them, if the game ends and you're saying to yourself, "Oh, how much did he play? I don't really remember," and then you look at a sheet and you go, "Wow, he played 25 minutes." Well, if that's the case, that means they've done their job really well, because most defensemen are guys that if you don't notice them, they've just been steady all the way through, and they've done their job, and you didn't have to worry about them one iota. So that's what Cody Golubev, to me, that's what he was last night. He just went out there, he did his job, he did it well, and he's going to make a push. There's no question. There are more young defensemen than there are spots available, quite frankly. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Tim Erickson is really pushing hard for a spot. Cody Golubev is pushing hard for a spot. And all you have to do is look at the example of the last 2 years. Dalton Prout 2 years ago, who was he coming into this thing? Was he a guy that was expected to play very much in the NHL? I don't think so, but he did. And he is, and he's still there. And the other night against St. Louis, he was on the power play. He was doing all kind of stuff in that game. Then you've got David Savard, who last year was, I don't even know if anybody, when you projected the top 6 defensemen, I don't know that Savard was in that top 6 of anybody's. Well, somebody in the front office, I'm sure. But the point is, he was so impressive, and he earned a spot, and they never were able to take him out of the lineup. And now it's not even a thought that he ever would be out of the lineup. So it happens, and Cody Golubev's trying to become that guy this year, trying to get into that realm as a guy that they can't take out of there, that they have to have in there. And again, he played really well last night. Everything he did last night, I think, was good, and he's got to continue it. That's the unfortunate thing about guys like Erickson, Golubev. These guys that are really fighting and battling, they want to get as many games as they possibly can, and then they've got to be as close to perfect as they can be every time they play, just for their own sake, just to showcase themselves as best as they possibly can and have the best opportunity to make the team. It's that simple. Let's see. Matthew Pfeffer says, what do you think of Cam Atkinson's game so far this preseason? Do you think being benched last season helped him? I do. I do think that. And I do think he's come out with more of an edge this year. I thought, last night there were times that we saw Cam Atkinson do the things that he does really well. That's a burst of speed, create something out of nothing like he did on that goal. And there was another play, was it the third period, where he had a shot. He had a really, really good position in the high slot area, and the puck came to him, and he went to blast a shot, and his stick disintegrated, broke in half, and he never got the shot away, unfortunately. But, again, his quickness, his speed, he's got to play two-way hockey. That's why he got benched last year, because he was playing one way. He wasn't moving his feet enough, which means that he was standing around a lot. And for a guy whose game is built on speed, when you're not moving, you're not playing to your strength. And that's what he was told, and that's what he knows he has to do. That's the biggest correction he has to make from last year to this year. And, he had 2 goals in Carolina. Again, I didn't see that game the other day. I didn't see it live. I saw the highlights, probably like most of you did. But, he had 2 goals in that game. Last night could have had 2 goals against the Penguins. But it goes back to the old preseason. It's not about how much you're scoring. It's about the things that you're doing. And I think he's doing more of those things that Todd Richards wants and needs him to do so that he can be a regular fixture in the top 6 this year. Jordan David Mills, what are your impressions of Kirby Reichel following yesterday's game against the Pens? Is he NHL ready? That is a good question, and I talked about Kirby a little bit earlier here. The fact that I think he's played fine. Is he NHL ready? I don't know. That's the true answer. I don't know. Again, he's doing a lot of good things, but it's going to depend, how many spots are up for grabs and what those spots are and how other guys factor in. All I can tell you is it's not going to matter if I think he's NHL ready. It's going to matter if John Davidson, Jarmo Kekalainen, and Todd Richards think that he's NHL ready. But here's the deal. If any of those 3 thinks that he's close but not quite there, he goes to Springfield, hands down. And John Davidson has said that. And that's the way they handled things when he was in St. Louis. That's the way they will handle things here now that there is great depth in the organization, because you don't have to put Kirby Reichel here if he's not ready. You don't have to put Alexander Wenberg here if he's not ready. You don't have to put Marco Dano here if he's not ready. You don't, because there are other players. And that is the great thing about an organization having depth and having strength and having youngsters that are coming up that don't have to get thrown right into the NHL fire and be expected to perform immediately. There is a safety net. You can go to the American Hockey League and you can play within a structured pro system, and you can learn and you can get better, and you can come here when you're ready, when the time is right. And again, I'm not saying that Kirby Reichel is not ready right now. He's done good things in a couple of games, but I'm just saying, unlike some previous years, you don't have to think that, oh my goodness, if a first-round pick doesn't make the team, then how good is this team going to be? The better teams are the ones where the first-round picks have to wait, because that means the talent in front of them is so good that there's not room yet. There will be, but there's not room yet, and that is a sign of a good organization, not just a good team, good organization. Ryan Flanagan says, how much will a healthy Nathan Horton help the Blue Jackets this year? Well, Ryan, tons. This guy was signed to a big-time contract last summer because he knows how to score. He knows how to play. He's a big guy, plays with an edge, and can score. So he'll help a lot. And it's unfortunate that his back is keeping him from getting into the lineup right now. They say that he's feeling better and that he's getting better every day, and I believe that's the truth, no doubt about it. So I think it'll help a lot. I think he's important. It's not be-all, end-all, because he didn't play a lot last year, and he didn't even play until January 2nd last year, period. So it's not the be-all, end-all, but you didn't sign this guy to not play, right? You signed him because he's going to make your organization a lot better. So how much would him being part of it help? It would help a ton. So hopefully Nathan's going to be ready to go sooner than later and be back in there. The one thing that concerns me about him, and I won't lie to you, because we talked about this all last year, and Todd Richards talks about this all the time. When you miss training camp, you're kind of behind the 8 ball. And you're trying to catch up. You're trying to get your work in while the season's going on. And we saw that with Nathan last year. He worked so hard in September, October, November, December, and then he finally played in January, and he just was, it was obvious. One of the things we kept on saying last year was, boy, it'll be great when Nathan goes through a full training camp and he's healthy and he can do this and do that, and unfortunately he still can't do it. So that's why they want to get him back in there as quickly as they can, and he wants to get back as quickly as he can. And everybody understands that you don't push yourself and hurt yourself further and spend more time on the shelf. That's the whole key. You've got to wait until you're ready, but that's a frustrating thing, to wait until you're absolutely ready and get back in there, because Nathan Horton knows that he wants to get in and get his timing back and work with guys that are going to be on the team and get a little bit of chemistry between them, because he had a little bit of that last year, but he didn't have a ton of it last year because of his injury situation. So he wants to get back. He will get back as soon as he can. I'm sure it's frustrating for him. You'd never know, because the guy smiles. He must smile 24 hours a day. But I'm sure it's frustrating for him, and he wants to be back in there. But again, that you don't force the issue. Just like Boone Jenner the other night. Comes up with tightness, get him out of the game. There's no need to push it. There's no need to try to do something foolish this early in the preseason. You still got 2 weeks from tomorrow before the first game. So you've got time. You've got preseason games. You've got practices. You nurse these guys back to health as quickly as you can, but as smartly also as you can, because that's the key to it. If you get them back on the ice and then they get hurt within 3 days, what have you done? You're just setting the whole process back. But Nathan Horton will make them a lot better when he's healthy. Because he's a top line guy. He's a top power forward who has won, expects to win, knows how to win, and leads by example. So he'll make them a lot better, no question about that. Well, today is an off day for the Blue Jackets. Yes, I said off day, not day off. In sport, I did baseball for a lot of years. Sometimes people look at me funny when I say that, but it was always an off day. Look on the schedules. They usually say off day. So nothing for the Blue Jackets today. We'll see if there's some trimming of the roster at some point today. It's very possible that could happen. And what else? Tomorrow night, next preseason game, going to St. Louis, to the Scottrade Center, to take on the St. Louis Blues and complete that preseason series. Of course, the Blue Jackets beat the Blues in overtime on Sunday night here at Nationwide Arena. So, I'm sorry, I was just looking at something that popped up there that caught my attention. I thought it was something other than what it was. So 8 o'clock face-off at Scottrade Center in St. Louis tomorrow night. We've got pregame coverage starting at 7:45 on the Scioto Downs Blue Jackets radio network, and in Columbus you can hear the game on 1460 ESPN. You can hear it through the app as well. And then it'll be on to Pittsburgh for a 4 o'clock game on Saturday. We'll go to Nashville next week and still have 2 preseason games remaining at Nationwide Arena against the Carolina Hurricanes and the Nashville Predators. So that's what's going on. Kind of a down day today, and I don't mean down day like sad, just kind of a quiet day. And these 2 things here. These quiet days don't come very often in training camp, and they don't last. Nothing ever lasts, because things are going to be getting fast and furious as we go along here. Don't forget, on Friday, I will be at the Roosters in Pickerington doing this show, 11:30 to noon. So come out, enjoy lunch, wear your Blue Jackets apparel. See this stuff behind me here? You wear that kind of stuff, 10% off your bill. That's Friday at the Roosters in Pickerington. So make sure you come out. Somebody asked me yesterday if I could save them a seat. Really? It wasn't in my job description, but I'll try. How's that? Fair enough? All right. Fair enough. That's going to do it for today's edition of CBJ in 30. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for being a part of it. Tomorrow, we'll do it again tomorrow. It's a game day tomorrow, so if you have questions, get them in as early as you can to me at Bobby Mack Sports on Twitter. And we'll do the show tomorrow. And then tomorrow night, I'll be in St. Louis. It's the Blue Jackets and Blues from the Scott Trade Center. Till tomorrow, Bob McElligott saying, so long.
I'll talk to you later. Don't want to hear it again tonight. I'll talk to you later. Just save it for another guy. I'll talk to you later. Don't want to hear it again tonight.